and how Bayer was able to sell human immunodeficiency virus, contaminated blood products to the public, and how early Bayer knew about the problem.
That the pharmaceutical industry is surrounded by controversies is nothing new. I confess that when I first found out about this case, I didn't believe it. It was very bizarre and could have just been another conspiracy theory. The German pharmaceutical company Bayer was involved in one of the biggest scandals in the industry after apparently knowingly contaminating people with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome in the 1980s. I know it sounds crazy, but if you want to learn how this happened, stay with me until the end of the video.
Internal documents show that after this company was absolutely certain that they had a medication that was infected with the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome virus, they removed the product from the United States market and then sold it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America.
Hemophilia is a rare genetic and hereditary disease. Genome, in simple words, it is a deficiency. In human blood, for example, hemophiliacs, after a simple cut, do not have the natural ability for blood clotting. That is, the transformation of liquid blood into a kind of solid gel to stop the bleeding. Until recently, living with hemophilia was a nightmare. Dangerous internal bleeding and hospital visits for blood transfusions were constant. Medicine has advanced, allowing those with this disease to live more calmly. After the appearance of the anti-hemophilic factor injection, also widely known as factor VIII, which is an injection with a concentrate of several procoagulant proteins derived from healthy blood donors. But even though hemophilia treatment had finally evolved, the world was not prepared for a deadly pandemic that would break out in the 1980s. The stage?
A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine. Today, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, male homosexuals with many partners and injection drug users top the list of likely victims.
Plague, scourge, or gay cancer. That's how acquired immunodeficiency syndrome was prejudicially treated at the beginning of the disease's spread in 1977 and 1978. The first cases were reported in the United States, Haiti, and Central Africa. Brazil had its first confirmed case in 1980. The truth was that the world was trying to understand how human immunodeficiency virus transmission worked and where it originated.
There's a lot of anxiety. All of us who are taking care of the patients go through periods of personal anxiety about getting the disease. We don't know what we're dealing with and we don't know how it's spread.
Suddenly, the fear of the disease spread faster than the disease itself.
I lost my job, I lost my housing.
I lost my job, my apartment, and my friends. I lost my own individuality, says Steve Callahan, on a local television program aimed at containing the panic over acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. A sound technician refused to put a microphone on a young man with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome who had to be interviewed over the phone. I feel very isolated, says the young man. Police officers in San Francisco demanded and received special masks and gloves to use when dealing with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome victims.
Not everything is known about it.
No one really knows what this disease is. I know they're judging us, says the sergeant, but it doesn't matter. In New York, the firefighters also asked for special masks. Prison guards are demanding thermal suits to have contact with inmates with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, and funeral homes are refusing to embalm the bodies of the disease's victims.
Back in 1982, the disease, which was unknown until then, got a name.
Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
The disease known as acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
The disease, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
The disease, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
A person carrying the virus becomes weaker and more vulnerable to common infections. White blood cells are reduced and the immune system is practically destroyed. Without proper treatment, the person becomes extremely susceptible to diseases like viral hepatitis, tuberculosis, pneumonia, and even cancer.
When the immune system breaks down, the person is susceptible to a wide range of different infections and cancers. And the symptoms are really those of those specific infections or cancers.
In this scenario of the 1980s, where not even the scientific community knew exactly the correct treatment, being diagnosed with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome was a death sentence.
It's mysterious, it's deadly, and it's baffling. Medical science, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Once thought to affect only promiscuous homosexual males, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is now spreading in epidemic proportions to other segments of the population.
The immune deficiency syndrome is fatal. According to scientists at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, 75% of people who contract this disease die in less than 3 years.
It was very common for people to deteriorate like dying patients in hospital rooms until death. July 16, 1982. The Centers for Disease Control reported that 3 heterosexual hemophiliacs treated with factor VIII contracted a rare form of pneumonia, often diagnosed in patients with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. The following month, the United States Food and Drug Administration met with the manufacturers of factor VIII, recommended discontinuing blood plasma from gay men because of potential mass contamination risk control. That's because it only took one donor infected with human immunodeficiency virus to contaminate the entire supply. Since the blood from each individual was pooled in tanks of 10,000 or more donors for the large-scale production of factor VIII, well,
We didn't realize that the drug we thought was saving their lives, all hemophiliacs really at the time, was the drug that ended up taking their lives because it contained the human immunodeficiency virus.
This is Ryan White. Born in 1981, he died at only 18 in 1990. Ryan learned he was a hemophiliac as a baby when his circumcision bleeding wouldn't stop. He died young, not from hemophilia, but from using human immunodeficiency virus, contaminated factor VIII. White was diagnosed with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome in 1984, and the doctors gave him 6 months to live. Although he lived longer, his life was both joyful and painful, and school was never peaceful. No school would accept the boy, and those that did only did so by court order. They noticed that nearly half the other students were absent, and even teachers who went so far as to create a petition to ban him from the school.
You guarantee that my daughter will not get acquired immunodeficiency syndrome as a pastime. If you can, then he shouldn't be in school.
I don't want to take the chance of my child being right next to him and
maybe accidentally being. The pressure was so great that they even shot at Ryan's house at night, and after that happened, he and his family had to move to another city. Widespread ignorance about acquired immunodeficiency syndrome caused global panic, but Ryan's legacy was educating the world about the disease. He appeared on several television shows, and despite all the suffering, he showed a lot of maturity in his words.
My family and I had no hatred for those people because we realized they were victims of their own ignorance.
Ryan became a kind of national spokesperson in the fight against acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Elton John even dedicated a song to him. Good. A year before he died, a movie about his story was released. His funeral, which was attended by several celebrities, including Michael Jackson and Donald Trump, caused a commotion throughout almost the entire country.
This nation lost one of its main figures in the fight against acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. 18-year-old Ryan White has died of the disease. President Bush said all Americans were touched by his courage, strength, and ability to keep fighting.
4 months after his death, the United States Congress passed the Ryan White Act in his memory. The law is still the largest program funded by the American government to help people with acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. We can even say that Ryan's human immunodeficiency virus infection and that of other hemophiliacs may have been unfortunately accidental, but we can't say the same about what happened in other countries. While all these events were happening, about 8 years before Ryan's death, the manufacturers of factor VIII were already eager to launch a safer product, as it was becoming clear that blood plasma was being contaminated by human immunodeficiency virus. And it didn't take long for the new factor VIII to be released, and the new manufacturing process was counterintuitive, since Dr. Judith Poole, back in 1965, she discovered that, to obtain concentrated factor VIII from blood, it was necessary to freeze it, thaw it, and then wait for the thawing process. This allowed small flakes of factor VIII to settle at the container's bottom, where they were then made into powder. Now, in the new manufacturing process, it would be heat-treated to reduce the risk of contamination by viruses such as human immunodeficiency, virus hepatitis, and others. From then on, each company independently inactivated a virus present in a factor VIII concentrate after heating it to a certain temperature for a specific time and with the addition of certain stabilizers to protect the proteins from the heat, since high temperatures could not only destroy the viruses but also the entire blood material. In May 1984, Cutter, in an internal study, found that the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome virus, human immunodeficiency virus, survived the manufacturing process of their own factor VIII that was not heat treated, and in the process with heat treatment, human immunodeficiency virus did not survive the viral deactivation process. In other words, if there were still doubts before, now they definitely knew that the heat-treated product was safer. However, Cutter decided to continue selling the non-heat-treated factor VIII. One reason was that it was cheaper to manufacture, and another was that the company had huge stocks of non-heat-treated factor VIII. What should be done with the stockpiled product at high risk of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome contamination? Should it be discarded, losing all manufacturing investments and accepting the losses? No. Remember, companies at this level usually have no scruples or any ethical standards in their actions. Sense of humanity. Even worse, at times like these, profit speaks louder. And all Cutter needed was to sell their unsold stock of factor VIII, not heat-treated, in 1984. And for the planned channel, Cutter reviewed their international markets and saw that it would be possible to offload their stock of non-heat-treated factor VIII in the Far East. Since, in the words of the company's own plan, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome will not become a significant problem among Asian hematologists for 1,000. And according to Cutter's 85 marketing plan, heat-treated factor VIII would only be introduced in Asia, if necessary, as a defense against the fear of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So, that's how Cutter acted. They didn't choose to destroy the high-risk, non-heat-treated stock. Cutter claimed in their own marketing plan that they would need to sell as much as possible, even at marginal prices, and that they would only sell heat-treated factor VIII. Only after the pressure increased. Otherwise, they would continue to dominate the markets with low-cost standards, especially since they had fixed-price contracts. Why would you sell the new product if you can get a higher margin with the old one? In fact, they extended this plan to Latin America, exporting a lot to Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, and even Costa Rica. But it didn't take long for the controversy and pressure over this plan to come to light. Some doctors who worked in the United States moved to Hong Kong, and they knew that the heat-treated product had become the standard of care in the United States, and they assumed the same was happening on the other side of the world. But in Hong Kong, 40% of pediatric hemophiliacs had tested positive for human immunodeficiency virus. It's impossible to know exactly how many people were infected due to this stock dumping by Cutter, since it's a figure that's difficult to record and estimate. In the meantime, some of the more vocal patients managed to get 350 heat-treated vials. In Hong Kong, pressure on Cutter mounted from all sides. The medicine that restored hemophiliacs' lives was now killing them again. 2008.
It couldn't be possible. Our lives had gotten so much better, we were in control of them, infusing at home. And then all of a sudden, one day, we were told that the very drug that was saving our lives, that had given us this freedom, was now going to take our lives.
From that point on, Cutter began to realize that the foreign market for their old product was closing in the United States. The Food and Drug Administration increased restrictions on manufacturers and threatened to revoke some product licenses if sales continued. The non-heat-treated factor VIII, and as this internal document shows, the head of the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Harry, said in a meeting with the manufacturers that he didn't want any attention drawn to the fact that the Food and Drug Administration had allowed this situation to continue for so long. And he would still like the issue to be resolved quietly without alerting Congress, the medical community, or the public. Community. This clearly shows the importance of being cautious, even with a regulatory agency. Even if, in theory, it exists to protect you, and even if it's from a first-world country. In the mid-1985, Cutter realized it would no longer be possible to continue and definitively stopped producing heat-untreated factor VIII in June 1985. But it was already too late. The damage had already been done. Fate.
I have a desire to experience this.
I want to live.
Of course.
That's why neither I nor the United States forgive.
I can't forgive Americans for what they did to me. They destroyed my life.
I know this isn't fast, but I'm like a clock.
Second by second, time passes until our end.
I know.
Many of them died from complications related to acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. The Hemophilia Society of the United Kingdom has a whole page apologizing for having issued statements reassuring people, and that the treatment for hemophiliacs at the time was risk-free and that they should continue using it without fear. Almost 40 years later, the government there is finalizing compensation of 100,000 euros for all the victims of this contaminated blood scandal with hepatitis E or human immunodeficiency virus.
I've grown up watching him inject himself with this poison.
Richard's brother, Mark, was a hemophiliac. He died aged just 24, a victim of the worst treatment disaster in the National Health Service. He was one of nearly 30,000 people infected with human immunodeficiency virus and hepatitis C by the products that were meant to treat them.
The truth is that this scandal led to several lawsuits around the world. For example, in France, 2 government officials were arrested in 1985 for using old stock that hadn't been heat treated. Many of these details only became public after a class action lawsuit by hemophiliacs in the United States. Against Bayer and 3 other companies, it was a lawsuit that lasted more than 15 years and ended with a settlement of $600 million.
First of all, you are suing the maker of the blood product that infected your son.
Right? We're suing Miles Cutter Pharmaceutical Company.
You also make other claims in your lawsuit, and we'll go over those in more detail. You're alleging gross negligence at the time. Basically, all sorts of yellow lights went off. This was 1982, and we were discussing it.
They knew.
Do you believe they knew?
Absolutely. They could have saved many people's lives.
Documents such as internal memos, marketing meeting minutes, and letters to foreign distributors were revealed in this process, which brought to light something that, if it had only been spoken about without the exposure of these conventional documents as evidence, would have been just another conspiracy theory. This story, largely ignored by the media in Brazil, was uncovered in 2003 by New York Times journalists. Dr. Sidney Wolfe, a man who spent his life fighting against industry abuse, told the New York Times, quote, "This is the largest release of internal pharmaceutical documents I've ever seen." End quote. In the face of all this scandal, Bayer at the time made only one statement claiming that, quote, "It has always behaved responsibly, ethically, and humanely to provide life-saving products to the global hemophilia community. Decisions made almost 2 decades ago were based on the best scientific information available at the time and were in accordance with the prevailing regulations." In the Brazilian, it is very documented everything that was to be the first to be the first the first to be the first to be the first to be the first. Regulatory of a heat-treated product. Opa, how is it, Bayer? How is it? Wait a minute. What do you mean acted quickly? The Cutter documents clearly show that you spent a year and a half exporting non-heat treated factor VIII, even though you had a new product. And the argument that the bureaucratic process for approving a new product is slow is invalid because Dr. Cindy Lay, Assistant Director of the Hong Kong Department of Health, said that Cutter only needed an import license in the 1980s to sell the newer product, and that would take just 1 week. In the following paragraph, they also show that technology has evolved over these 40 years and that 100% of their hemophilia portfolio is now recombinant. All products are made entirely in the laboratory. Therefore, human blood use has been eliminated, reducing the risk of viral contamination to nearly zero. They conclude by stating the products are approved in Brazil by Anvisa and that hemophilia treatment is provided only by the Sistema Único de Saúde, serving over 10,000 people. Whenever I research a new video about the pharmaceutical industry, I increasingly see that this is an industry that lives on the fine line between good and evil. Bayer, for example, synthesized the world's most popular painkiller, aspirin, and in a way brought scale to a product that was very good for humanity. At the same time, you find in Bayer's history this case involving its subsidiary Qatar and the likely conscious spread of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome around the world. There are two sides, and there's no way to deny two things about the pharmaceutical industry: that it has in some way improved our quality of life, and at the same time, it has worsened our quality of life. At least for some people, victims of the voracious desire for profit at any cost. Whether through absurd marketing or by hiding the truth about certain medications, and even through the corruption of the scientific community. I want to know your opinion about all of this. Leave it here in the comments, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. It strengthens the channel and helps this video reach more people. Because if it's Bayer, it's good.